Hello, hello, Ederson Oliveira here. This is the fourth conversation interview for the DNN Summit 2018. And as usual, I have a good mix of topics here. And it's funny how this works out because I don't plan who will come when, but there's always a mix of technology, market, communication. So it's the same here. We have a bit of technology, a bit of communication here. I'm going to start with my friend David Poindexter. David, can you give us an intro about yourself, what you do, and how it relates to DNN?
Yeah, sure. I'm David Poindexter. I am the CEO, or as I'm affectionately called here, the Geek EO of Envisionative, and we are a creative marketing and app development agency in the Charlotte, North Carolina area. We're actually up towards Race City, USA, and surrounded by all kinds of NASCAR people, even though we're not really NASCAR folks ourselves. So I've been in the DNN community for, well, really since the inception. I was building iSpy modules way back in the day and segued right into .NET Nuke and later DNN. And we utilize DNN among other content management systems and platforms to build websites and web apps and mobile apps and all that good stuff. So yeah, we've been around for quite some time.
Awesome. So let me get a little bit down to your session here. So geolocating with DNN, really, first of all, what is geolocation? What is geolocating?
So, you know, it's simply detecting where you are. So be it programmatically or otherwise, but in this case, programmatically detecting where you are, and then based on that location, doing something with you, interacting with you.
So where you are from a map standpoint, or from you know, I have this location here, I'm mapping where you are within this location.
Yeah, so I mean, you may have heard of a concept called geofencing, which would utilize your GPS location region, if you will. And if you're within that region, then something can be done in a particular app. Usually this is in the context of a mobile app, but it could be other types of interaction to do that. But this is specifically really about very pinpointed locations to where when you get within a proximity of that particular location, then it's going to interact with you. So I'm really focusing on the geolocation type stuff.
So what does qualify you to talk about the subject? No, I mean, how come you're talking about that? I would assume you have a project in your pocket there, but tell a little bit about that.
Well, I'm in the Geek EO, so I mean that qualifies, right? So no, we've been in the IoT space, or Internet of Things space, for quite some time, and one of the things that have always fascinated me is the iBeacon technology, where it's a device that sits wherever you want it, and you, within using low energy Bluetooth, can detect when you're within a certain range of that device and then do something. So let's say you've got I'm using a random example, but you're walking into a department store and you've got that department store's mobile app, and you walk into the men's section, and there, unbeknownst to you, there is an iBeacon there that says, hey, did you know that we have a sale on men's slacks today? You can get 30% off. So that's a lot of times what they're using for those type things. So we've had a few projects now where we're able to utilize that technology, and it's very effective if implemented well.
I want to talk a little bit with you next about the technology soup that you have to put together to make something like this work. But hold on that thought for a second here. I want to move on to Dennis. Dennis Shiao, he is Director of Content Marketing at DNN Corp. Dennis, can you give us an intro about yourself?
Sure. So I'm actually going to reveal something that perhaps folks in the community aren't aware of about myself.
Awesome.
All right, you ready for it?
Yes.
Okay, so I have a computer science degree, and I started my career as a developer. So this was, I guess I'll date myself. This was early 90s. I only moved into marketing about 12 years ago as a result of an acquisition. So one company acquired another, and I was managing IT infrastructure, and they were not bringing the IT team over. So I had to figure out, do I want to find a new job, or do I want to try to stay on with the new company? And I convinced the new company to give me a role, one of the roles on their marketing team. So first half of my career, I was actually was not a good coder. I actually went from individual coding into managing teams because I could manage teams better than I could manage my own code. And but then second half of my career has been doing marketing. So I am responsible for content marketing, but also a lot of other different elements of marketing for Corp. And don't code anymore, but at least that gives me the background to be able to understand what a lot of the end users or even the developers who are developing on DNN, I can't do their job, but I at least know a little bit about what they do. I think that mix gives me a good perspective to create content. To a lot of my time at DNN has been creating content for the marketer, but now I'm starting to do some more some creation of content for IT or for the developer.
Got it.
And that's a lot of what I do for Corp.
Got it. So you're not easily fooled by tech talk, are you?
I could probably still be fooled these days, but at least I have a shot at knowing when someone's trying to fool me.
You know what? As you revealed that, I want to dig just a little bit deeper on that. How was the transition from being a technical guy, even though you said that you're not a great coder, that's fine, but how was the transition from being a tech guy to being more of a marketing guy?
For me, it was an easy transition because I've been on this, like in the long journey of life, I've learned over my course of my career that I think I was always been at heart a marketing / creative person. And so I became a developer because I started learning computer science in high school. Like I took an AP computer science course and then decided I want to major in that in college. And my father was a lifelong IBMer. So he worked for IBM. And so there was an influence for me into choosing computers. But I think I ultimately learned that I was so much better in like creative writing as opposed to writing code. So that even when I was a developer, I was like writing emails to my company to talk about our volleyball games. And I wrote for the school newspaper. So I think I always had the marketing in me. And it only really, as a result of an acquisition, surfaced in my actual shift. But the shift felt natural. And in my current role, I feel more at home than I've ever been.
Awesome. Let's tie this back here to your session. Your session is talking about how to write a great blog post. So my question to you is blogging still relevant in 2018?
I think it's as relevant as ever. I know what you're probably getting at. There's just so much more media types out there. We have a lot more short form content. We have tweets from now 280 characters. We have things like Snapchat. We have short video. We have live video. So there's just so much out there. And so I'm going to be talking about written blog posts, but I know a lot of people are just like this session right now. We're talking actual video and audio, and it's going to be recorded. But I think written blogging is as relevant as ever, but at a bigger picture level, just the creation of content, it doesn't have to be like a written blog post, is as relevant as ever to try to engage with and reach people you're trying to reach. Awesome.
Again, I'll circle back to you very soon, but I would like to talk to you later next time about how to break, away from the noise that we hear out there. How can you break away from that and stand out? But hold on that thought. I'm gonna move on to Scott. Scott, my partner in crime, missing for the last episode, the last chat. But hey, I miss you, Scott. You are in my heart. But let's not get too sentimental here.
Yeah.
Scott, how about you introduce yourself?
Well, I'm Scott Wilkinson. I work for a DNN Gold partner named Blue Bolt. We're in Chicago. I'm in the Chicago area. And people might also recognize the name .NET Nuclear, which was my company name before I joined Blue Bolt, and my GitHub page and all that stuff. Like you mentioned, used to be a regular contributed DNN hero. I've been slacking off lately, but I've got some videos coming up, hopefully. And obviously, also I do a lot of training. In fact, the reason I was out last month is because I was in North Carolina, or was it last week? I was in North Carolina. Before that, I was in San Diego. Next week, I'll be in Florida. I don't know what happened, but I suddenly went from a developer to being a DNN trainer almost full time for the past month. So I guess DNN, the knowledge or learning about it is really picking up.
I get it. Let me ask you this. If you don't mind me asking, if you can say that, if you can mention, what kind of training are you doing? Is that more of a development training? Is that a platform training or a mix of both?
Yeah, it's usually a mix. I went to San Diego a few weeks ago, and I think it was a 3-day on-site engagement. And it was both content editors, IT support, and developers. Next week I'm doing a 4-day, and it's the same thing. It's, we start at the beginning and we go all the way from content management to IT support, content editing, to theme development, to module development.
Awesome, great. Now I know that we can do training beyond module development. But in any case, let me get to your session here, which is actually a full day training on DNN module development. So my question to you is, what is the baseline that you need to have to be able to attend to that course? Is that enough to have, I know ASP.NET and I want to start developing modules for DNN. Is that enough? What is the minimum requirement to attend to your course?
Yeah, I think so. I think having the ability to, let's start at the beginning. Bring a laptop, be able to use remote desktop to connect to a server, know a little bit of have Visual Studio or know a little bit about Visual Studio, and have a little bit of background in ASP.NET. That's about it. Obviously, if you have some background in ASP.NET, you've been doing some web development, as a junior developer or even a mid developer, a senior developer, you also have some JavaScript experience and things like that. But that's basically it for my course. My course is more of an introduction, but it's not an introduction to programming. I'm not going to teach you programming. It is for developers of all level, with some experience and up to senior level, but just don't really know about the DNN platform and the best practices for developing for it.
Got it. Awesome. Okay, so I'm gonna keep moving here. I'll get back to you in a little bit. David, let me get back to you. I asked you to hold the thought of which technologies, which soup of technology you had to put together, to come up with a solution, to do geolocating. What is the soup of technology there?
Yeah, there are a lot of devices on the market this day for iBeacon specifically, but going beyond just the proximity location type stuff, and doing geofencing and things like that, definitely a knowledge of the mobile app world, because mostly that's where the context of this lives, because you have your mobile app, your mobile phone with you. So having an app there that's going to do this detection, but utilizing GPS, so some knowledge of mapping technologies. And then as far as integration with DNN, of course, some knowledge there on how to do APIs and that sort of thing, and build databases on the side of DNN.
Got it. Okay. So you mentioned there iBeacon, DNN. Anything else? Any specific technology? Because you mentioned quite a few. You mentioned Cordova, which is mobile development. You mentioned SAS, Angular. Again, I'm trying to get the soup of terms that someone would need to start to get familiarized with to tip their toes on a space like that.
Yeah, there's definitely a lot of things that are kind of connecting together here. Some of the ones that I'm mentioning specifically in the talk description for the session at DNN Summit is I'm going to be using a case study that we have on a client that we built a walking tour type thing for a historic downtown area, where they have all these locations that are on the historic register, and they've got all these nice content that's associated with these locations. So in that world, we were using, they have a mobile app that is built using the Ionic framework. Many may remember my talk last year on Ionic at DNN Summit. So using Ionic, it's of course Angular based, utilizing SAS and Cordova to access the Bluetooth type features there. So understanding Cordova plugins in that realm would be very important. And then we used the iBeacon type way of connecting with it, but we used a company called Estimote for the actual devices themselves. So estimote.com you can see all kinds of devices out there, and we were using their proximity beacons to utilize that. And you can use either iBeacon or Eddystone to connect to your mobile environment there with them, and we chose iBeacon in this case.
Got it. On that solution, that particular solution that you guys put together, David, is there a lot of maintenance that needs to go on there to make sure that everything is working properly, working fine, or it's pretty much a hands-off type of approach?
Yeah, so the beauty of pairing a solution like this with DNN is that DNN becomes your back end for all your data. So if it's architected well and developed properly, then you're utilizing DNN and the data on that side to manage the content delivered, the content that's being delivered to the mobile device. So it is pretty hands-off with this particular one, because they may add a location, every few months that has some more history in it. But once you do it the first time, it's pretty much done. But it is scalable in the sense that this could easily be applied to other cases where, use cases where you're in an airport and, you need to find some different points on it, and they're having a nice little scavenger hunt or something, at a park or something like that. There's all kinds of use cases for this that would allow you to be able to manage it on the back end, to be able to do that, which is much easier, of course.
Got it. Again, I'm just gonna mention that if anyone has questions to each other, by all means, please go for it. Another question here, David. As web developers, as DNN coders, that the three of us are, and I still do that a little bit. Very rarely we see our coding manifest itself physically in the world. It's always about a website and human interaction there. How does it feel like to be coding something that will manifest itself when someone passes by? Again, that's the question.
Yeah, that was kind of the inspiration of the title of my talk, geolocating with DNN, really. It's not DNN per se that is actually, detecting the location and so forth, but we're thinking a little outside of the box from our norm of just developing web content that's going to be delivered in a browser and so forth. It really is utilizing it as a back-end system. In this particular use case that I'll be using, it's not even exposed on the website, this information. So it's just in the system literally as a back-end data repository, if you will, for that structured data to be manifested on the mobile app. So it's really fun to ask a question, to see it coming that way, to going beyond the browser.
Got it. Yeah, and manifest itself in the real world. Let me ask you this: you got some exposure there with IoT, Internet of Things. From your standpoint, what is the opportunity that you see now with IoT, and technology that surrounds that topic, what is the opportunity that you see for developers out there?
It is a wonderful world right now, in the sense, I kind of liken it to back when the internet was first being, coming on the scene. We have this thing here, and nobody knows exactly how they're going to utilize that, to either monetize or offer some service or whatever it is. And we had the .com boom, right? We're on the front end of this in the IoT world right now, where you see a lot of people that are utilizing it, like in home automation and things like that. These companies are really jumping on it. But we're just scratching the surface of it at this point. So I still think we're still in this immature area of, okay, there's this thing called Internet of Things. What in the world does that mean to me and my business or my clients' businesses or, whatever? We're still trying to figure that out. So there's so many opportunities out there for developers and creative thinkers to utilize this type of technology. And it really kind of comes down to the idea, that is in place to be able to put something together, technically speaking.
Got it. And if I was interested to tip my toes on the IoT space, I just want one name. I mean, don't come to me with a soap of names, because I know that you can give that. But tell me one name, one site, one technology, one thing that you'd say, hey, you may want to start right here. What is that?
Well, I mean, honestly, the one that I'm focusing on in this talk, I mean, I'll be talking about other stuff in this talk, but, just the iBeacon stuff alone is a very low barrier of entry to understand how those work. And it's not hard to come up with an idea that ties into that type of thing. You want to detect when somebody gets within a certain area. That's a great place to start in IoT.
Awesome. Okay. Dennis, let's move on to you now. As I mentioned before, I'm curious to know what you'd recommend for people in terms of content to break away from the noise that we have out there with massive amounts of content, with everybody trying to be on your face with their content, not only with their offering, but with their content as well. How do you break away from the noise?
I think at a very high level, it's what is Steve Jobs saying? Think different. I think just be different. I think it's really challenging today, because back 10 years ago, you could publish a new article or blog post on a topic and it would have a pretty good chance that you might find the readers you're looking for. But today, everybody is publishing, and some people are publishing multiple times per day. And you multiply that by all the different brands or individuals publishing, and it's just crazy. Not to mention the fact that as consumers, we have so many other choices like Netflix and what have you, other places to consume podcasts. There's just so much content to consume. It's mind-boggling. So one thing is, in terms of thinking different, here's one example, which is there might be a blog in your space that publishes daily. Let's say they publish 5 posts a week. You're just not going to be able to keep up with that. So what I would do, so let's say I was trying to compete by publishing twice a week. I would suggest maybe instead of competing against the person publishing every day, so let's say 30 posts a month, publish one awesome post per month. So you're going significantly down from high quantity to high quality. And I think what I'm finding in marketing circles is that piece of long form content that can become authoritative on a topic, like a friend of mine named Andy Crestodina at Orbit Media Studios always says, write the best blog post on a given topic across the entire web and you'll win. So let's say maybe it's, for this audience, maybe it's something to do with NBC. If you could write the best blog post that goes into all different angles of developing on NBC, you're going to probably get the attention, and that's something that's going to persist, meaning it's not time bound. It could be still relevant 5 years from now. People are going to find that in search engines. People are going to link to that. People are going to tweet it. And that's going to be so much powerful for you than if you wrote a blog post per day about NBC. Because if you're writing it per day, you're probably very very superficially covering the topic. So one advice here is just go spend so much more time on a single post than trying to crank them out. Don't play the volume game.
Got it. Okay, so you spoke about the writing aspect of it, which is one aspect of a few different aspects of content creation. So let's talk a little bit about the content distribution then. So you wrote this fabulous piece of content here about technology or whatever it is. How do we go about now to push it out to the world? Because you know what, if I write this beautiful thing here, on my website and there's no visitors on my site, I mean, I'm writing to nobody here. So tell me a little bit about the distribution side of the content creation.
Sure. So there's two angles in my mind. One is, and I don't mean the first angle to be a cop-out, but if you create really compelling content, there's a higher likelihood that people will find it and link to it and share it themselves. So I know some of the posts that I write on the DNN blog, there's a variation. Some are just don't get a lot of social shares, but others do. So it often correlates to good content. So good content, if you have like the social sharing buttons, like the share on Twitter, share on LinkedIn, people will be incentivized to share that because they believe it's good content. So that's the first angle. Now, of course, there is a lot of phenomenon today, like I was saying earlier, where you publish a piece of really great content, and as you said, no one knows that you published it. So one thing I would look into is there's some interesting tools that allow you to connect into circles of influencers. So there's one tool that I use called Triber. It's spelled Triberr. And the concept there is that people will, you as a user can create a tribe, and a tribe is a group of other users that you then can publish the RSS link for your blog, and everybody can see everybody else's blog, and you may choose within your tribe to share posts from other tribe members. So let's say I'm writing about content marketing. I might look for a tribe of other content marketers, and when I publish a new post, they will see in this tool that I published it, and they may choose to share it. So it's a great way to connect with other influencers, people who are influential on the same topic, and get them to share your content. It's not blind sharing because they get to look at your content before they share, but it's a great way just for, so the manual way is you publish a new post and you go email people or you tweet and say, hey, this new post is up. For tools like Triber, they will automatically see it by way of RSS when it goes live, and it's like a built-in distribution machine. And it's free. There's some paid plans, but I use it at the free version. So it's a great tool. So that's just one example of a tool to automatically inform people that you publish something.
Got it. Actually, that's a great segue to my next point here, which is about tools. If right now I stop by to your desk and I have a look at your workstation, what are the tools of the craft that you Dennis use as a content marketing content creator? What are some of those tools? You mentioned Triber, but what else?
Yep. Of course, I got to mention DNN, right? That's where I publish all the content on DNNsoftware.com. Of course, we're using DNN. Other tools, so I use, I use a bunch of tools to help me find other people's content. So those include Flipboard, which is a great website and app that allows me to find great art content being shared across the web. There's a great one called Nuzzle, N-U-Z-Z-E-L. The way that works is you authenticate to your Twitter account, and then Nuzzle is going to find of everyone that I am following, what is the common content that they're sharing. And so it'll present me a dashboard of popular content that people that I follow are sharing. So it's a great way to get more value out of Twitter. Because if you look, I'm actually following like 10,000 people. So if I open the Twitter feed, it's a flood of a lot of stuff from my hobbies to DNN to marketing. And I'll often miss stuff that people are sharing. So Nuzzle will surface the things that are multiple people that I'm following is sharing. So that helps me find good content. And then I use a tool called Buffer, B-U-F-F-E-R, that helps me share some of the content that we're creating, both for my personal Twitter and for DNN's Twitter. So that's a free tool that's got some affordable monthly plans.
Got it. Got it. Awesome. Awesome. Great. So the tools that you mentioned there, it's about finding people, finding, I guess, that finding relevant content on a subject that you want to talk about, that you want to research more about. Is that correct? Is that?
Yeah.
Yep.
It's more about just finding interesting things that are already being published online that I might share.
Got it. Oh.
But as far as research, there's a bunch of other tools like that are SEO related. So there's tools like Moz, Ahrefs, there's Google Keyword Planner. So that helps you understand what is the volume behind certain keywords and how are our competitors ranking for those keywords. So there's some research tools there that I use as well.
Awesome, awesome. So again, thank you very much for sharing the tools of the craft. You know, I really like that because it tells a lot of, you know, you are the expert there, so which tools you are using. Let me change a little bit the subject here. Not related to content, not related to blogging, but related to DNN.
Yeah.
And I know that you'll be biased to answering that, but I'm gonna ask anyway. How is working for the new DNN Corp right now? How do you feel? I mean, how are things there?
I think it's been great. There's obviously with any change comes change. I guess that sounded funny. Sometimes, like some people have a hard time experiencing change, and I have to be honest. As part of the acquisition, there's been a lot of change. There's been new management in place. If you weren't aware, we went to 100% remote work model. So in the fall, DNN closed our offices.
Wow.
So now behind me is one of the rooms in my house. So no more office to go into. That was been a change for me because DNN headquarters was in the same town that I live in. So I just loved scooting into the office and like spending a productive day in the office. I prefer to be like physically next to my colleagues. So that's now we're in virtual meetings like this where we have our team meetings. But I think as far as the renewed commitment to the ecosystem, it's been, I've had a lot of, that's what I'm doing right now, is engaging with the ecosystem. I really enjoyed, I worked with Clint Patterson when he was with Corp the first time. And now that he's back, it's been one of the highlights of my job is working closely with Clint on engaging with all of you in the ecosystem. So I think it's all been great. And on the one hand, it's been changed, but I think a lot of times change can be good.
Got it. And how frequently do you guys come together? I know it's too soon, you know, it's too soon, just 3 months. But yeah. I mean, how frequently do you guys get together then?
We have our like weekly meetings that happen via online.
Okay.
We for those of us here in the San Mateo office, we have like an email distribution that's called Lunch Bunch. So we try to get together, say once a month, in person here in the Bay Area to catch up and have lunch. That includes both the folks at Corp that stayed on, and then there's folks who have moved on. So we still try to, that whole group combined tries to get together for lunch once a month. I think we're now in the holiday season, so I think it's the beginning of 2018, we'll be doing that more often.
Awesome, awesome. So again, thank you for the side scoop of DNN Corp there. Let me get moving here. Scott, let me ask you a question. Right now, as similar to what I asked Dennis, if I would go to your workstation, what kind of soup of technology and frameworks and tools that I would be seeing? And I'm talking about, you know, are you using, you know, React? Are you using, you know, those kinds of, you know, technologies, frameworks? What would I see on your workstation?
Yeah, not much has changed in the past year. So it's still pretty much Visual Studio 2017, ReSharper. I've been doing some React development as well as just normal, whatever, Knockout and C# and all that. Yeah, Notepad++, maybe Sublime. That's pretty much it.
Good. Okay, so that's what you use right now. But just think about this for a second. If you were to, you know, start today developing, you know, for DNN, would you still be using the same tools, or would you be going in a slightly different direction using, I don't know, React or something like that? I mean, would you be using some different tools, technologies, approaches, strategies?
Yeah, in fact, later on today, I'm in a expert panel with Will Morganwick, and it's interesting because one of the at the DNN Connect this past year, both Peter Donker and I did a persona bar session, right? Persona bar development, and our sessions were very different because he likes to use some of the newer tools like VS Code and different command line tools and that kind of stuff. And I kind of stick to the more traditional Visual Studio, professional. And so, yeah, I think if I was starting out and I was a young kid with less gray, I'd probably be maybe using, the free tools like VS Code and probably doing more stuff with Node and some of the stuff that Peter's doing as a young man that we know Peter Donker to be.
Got it. Okay. This is a point that I talked a little bit with Chris Hammond the last time that we spoke on a similar session here. Yeah. And the fact that module developers, they usually complain that it's hard to get started with DNN, and I think that one of the reasons might be because there was never too much of you start here and you go through here and you end up here, a more clear direction from the Corp, from a centralized entity like DNN Corp, of what is the best practice on doing this, on creating modules. So I guess that I would say that make sure you mention something like that on your module development conversation that you're going to be having today to have some sort of a central guideline of how this should be done properly. I mean, do you think that we are still missing that?
Yeah, I mean, and it was interesting because I talked to Will Morganwick, and he, one of the things about module development now is that there's almost too much information to learn. I mean, we have all sorts of different ways to develop modules now. We have, the MVC, SPA, just the traditional technique. We have module creator modules. We've got other ways people hack things up. There's lots of different extension types. And I think the question always becomes especially when I go to do on-site training is, well, yeah, you could do all this stuff. I can skin the cat so many different ways. What's the best practice? And so I think what we're going to do moving forward is probably, not only continue to develop out the documentation, right? Because that's one of the things that made the barrier to entry so difficult in the past was there was hardly any documentation. The documentation was, well, just go look at the code. How do I create a user? How do I create, just go look at the code. Well, now we do have some more documentation on DNN software/docs. So I think building that out, I think also simplifying what it is to build a module. I think eventually we'll probably have to narrow down our concept of developing a module to not, well, you could do MVC or SPA or web forms, and it'll eventually get down to one way, and probably eventually get to where we have one template. That would probably simplify it. But right now it still is a little bit confusing. But the advantage is we have DNN Hero. We have much more documentation now. So I think it's a little more accessible, but I think we still need to simplify.
Awesome. Last point of this round here. What are you looking for in 2018 in terms of technology, or in terms of the direction of DNN, in line with technology, around technology? What are you looking for?
Yeah, I mean, I think we're all as developers kind of still looking for that holy grail of being able to run DNN on multiple platforms. In other words, running on the ASP.NET Core. So I think moving further toward that, and like I said, moving forward towards simplifying what it means to develop extensions, not just modules, but any kind of extensions You know, because right now, if you look at developing a persona bar, a React persona bar extension, it's so much different than developing a module using Knockout or Angular, you know. And so it's, you know, how do we kind of simplify this stuff, streamline it, and yeah, and make it more open and more able to operate on different platforms.
Awesome, awesome. Let's go now to our final round here, which is a quick one. It's about the one thing, and I'm going to start with my friend David Poindexter. David, geolocating with DNN, really? What is the one thing?
Well, I would just say in a broader sense that utilizing DNN to do things out of the box like this is viable, and not only viable, it's smart. So I'd love for people to start thinking beyond just the browser and what is displayed on the site, and utilizing DNN more as a backend for mobile apps and other types of integrations.
Awesome, awesome. Dennis, how to create a great blog post? What is the one thing that you want people to leave your session knowing about?
Well, I think the one thing I want to inspire people is for them to understand I can create better blog posts, and I want to inspire them to go home and try out some tactics on doing just that. If you want to find out exactly what that means, you can come attend my session.
Awesome, awesome. And we don't edit here, no?
I'm sorry?
Scott, of course, you have, again, a full day session, you know, a full day course, a full day training, 8 hours of Scott. So what is it that people should be looking forward in the intro to DNN module development full day training with you, Scott?
Yeah, learning best practices, but more importantly, I mean, it doesn't take too long to develop a module, to learn how to develop a module, but I'll try to be covering a lot of the different extensions, and you know, there's a lot of things people don't know. It's not just modules, it's authentication, customizations, connectors, folder providers, all sorts of different ways you can integrate into DNN. The hardest thing I think we deal with the developers and Blue Bolt and others when I'm training them is how to build a solution, right? You know, how to match the requirements. It's not all about just, oh, well, that's just a module. Well, no, that could be some liquid content, that could be a connector, that could be different types of extensions. So it's really learning the different extensions, how to use them, and then obviously being able to best practice, develop a module in the correct way, package it so you can deploy it. And the other thing is, my tagline for sort of this summit is, you know, if you're new to DNN and you're a developer, go to my course first, because you'll get a whole lot more out of the sessions. Like, for example, David's session, where he's going to be talking about some things like modules and things like that. And you'll kind of have that understanding.
Awesome, awesome. And you give a good plug to your course there. Great, great. So guys, anybody wants to say any final words here, or can we depart?
I have a quick question for Scott. So Scott, we have some Evoke customers going to Summit. Is your training session applicable to Evoke users?
It is. I won't be covering Evoke specific things like liquid content or personalization, but we will be talking any extension you develop for the platform is usable within Evoke.
Okay, sounds good.
Awesome, awesome. Anybody else? Great, great, guys.
I just want to thank you for doing this. It's great that you take the time to talk to the speakers and so forth. Really appreciate it.
I love doing that, and again, I really like. So guys, thank you very much, and see you guys in 2018 during DNN Summit. Bye.